Nice launch trajectory and countdown net. Pad is clear.
10, 9, 8.
Launch auto sequence has started.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Go for launch.
Vehicle is supersonic.
Stage separation confirmed. Dragon, separation confirmed. Stage 1 is transonic. Landing legs have deployed. And Falcon 9 has landed.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's webcast. You're currently looking at a live view of Falcon 9, awaiting liftoff from Vandenberg Space Force Base, California, just about 8 minutes from now. Tonight's mission carries a national security payload designed, built, and operated by the National Reconnaissance Office, or NRO for short. My name is Ronnie Foreman, and I'm a senior commercial sales manager here at SpaceX. Tonight's mission marks our 381st overall launch, the 86th launch of 2024, and the 7th NRO launch on a Falcon 9. This mission continues the NRO's development of cutting-edge capabilities that deliver critical information that can only be obtained from the vantage point of space. The range and vehicle are currently green, which is great news, and we are on track for an on-time launch tonight at 8:20 p.m. Pacific. Now, we won't be showing any views of the payload this evening at the request of our customer. So for now, let's meet the vehicle and learn a little bit about the most flown U.S. launch vehicle ever, the Falcon 9 rocket. Falcon 9 is a two-stage rocket that is designed and manufactured by SpaceX for the reliable and safe transport of people and payloads.
Engine chill.
Call out there that engine chill has begun. Falcon 9 is also the first and currently the only orbital-class rocket capable of reflight. The bottom two-thirds of the vehicle is the first stage, also referred to as the booster. Not only is the first stage the largest part of the rocket, but it's also the portion of the rocket that we attempt to land on one of our drone ships or back on land for future reuse. Reusability is a critical part of our goal of making life multiplanetary. Every mission provides valuable information on repeated launch and reusability. That also allows us to refly.
Stage 1 RP1 load is complete.
There's confirmation that we're fully loaded with RP1 on board the first stage. Now, as I was saying, reusability allows us to refly the most expensive parts of the rocket, which in turn drives down the cost of access to space. To that end, tonight's booster will be flying for the 20th time, and the SpaceX team is working toward qualifying our fleet of Falcon boosters and fairings to support 40 missions each. At the very base of Falcon 9, there are 9 M1D engines. Collectively, those generate 1.7 million pounds of thrust at liftoff and accelerate the first stage through the Earth's atmosphere on its way to space. Just about 2.5 minutes after liftoff, the booster will separate from the rest of the rocket to make its way back to Earth. Stage 2 then continues on to its target altitude, where it will deploy today's payload. After stage separation, the booster will be returning to our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, which is currently stationed in the Pacific Ocean. Great view of it there on your screen as well. To date, we've landed a Falcon booster 344 times. Now coming back to this spectacular nighttime view of Falcon 9 on the launch pad, above the first stage is the second stage, which has a single
Falcon
Merlin...
9 tanks are pressing for strong back retract.
Perfect. They were pressing up for strong back retract. Now that second stage has a single MVAC engine that will ignite after the first stage separates. That second stage is what will carry the NRO payload to orbit. Located above the second stage is the payload fairing, which is the large barrel structure at the top of the rocket. At 17 feet in diameter, the carbon composite payload fairing protects satellites on their way to orbit, and those halves will be jettisoned around 3 minutes into today's flight. Callouts for mission control that we're preparing for strong back retract. The next visual indication we're going to have of our progress toward liftoff tonight is the opening of those clamp arms around the base of stage 2. Around the base of the payload fairing. We've been hearing a lot of callouts from mission control about the transporter erector, or TE. And coming up, Great, right on time. We're retracting the TE away from Falcon 9. At T-0, the ground hydraulic systems will pull the TE even further away from Falcon as it lifts off and clears the pad. The first stage is connected to a launch mount at the base of the TE right now, but the structure is hinged to allow for that retraction we just saw. You've heard it called the strong back by the launch team so far, in no small part because it does a lot of heavy lifting in the lead up to launch. We use the TE both to roll the vehicle out to the pad and raise it to its vertical launch position. The TE is also what we use to route the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry umbilicals from ground systems to the rocket and payload, until Falcon 9 switches to internal power and clears the pad. Now, at this point in the countdown, both the first and second stages are nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
Confirmation of LOX load complete. Both the first and second stage finish loading propellants just about a minute apart from each other. And again, the propellants on board Falcon 9 are a kerosene fuel called RP1 and liquid oxygen. We're currently standing by for LOX load complete on board the second stage, expected in just about 30 seconds. As always, the white clouds that you see around the vehicle are totally normal. That's the chilled gas from above the liquid oxygen tank that we vent overboard to maintain pressure in the rocket as needed. When that vented oxygen comes out of the tank and into the California air, the humidity condenses into clouds. Standing by for confirmation of LOX load complete on stage 2.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
Right on schedule. So the next major milestone that we're listening for is at about T-minus 60 seconds when Falcon 9 will be in startup mode. That means that the Falcon 9 autonomous internal flight compute closeouts are on their way there for Falcon 9. And we are just about 15 seconds away from startup mode, when those autonomous internal flight computers will take over the launch countdown. Then just inside of T-minus 2 seconds, we will light the M1D engines for liftoff.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
There's confirmation that Falcon 9 is in startup mode, and at this time, the NRO payload continues to be healthy, and our Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket.
LD is go for launch.
There's confirmation from our launch director that we are go for launch this evening. So let's sit back and watch as Falcon 9 lifts off from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff of Falcon 9. Go NROL-113.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
If you're just joining us, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 4 East, as you can hear on your screen, and we are getting some awesome shots of ascent. We've also heard a few call-outs so far from Mission Control.
Nominal power and telemetry.
Including that everything is looking nominal from both a power and telemetry standpoint. Now, in just a few moments, we're going to throttle down the engines.
Vehicle is supersonic.
in preparation for max Q. And with that call out, we hear that Falcon 9 is moving faster than the speed of sound.
Max Q.
There's that max Q call out. As you may have heard us mention before, max Q is a critical flight milestone because this is the moment in flight with the highest amount of aerodynamic pressure. So with that, we have 3 events coming up in quick succession here, starting with MECO, Stage SEP, and SES-1. Main engine cutoff, or MECO for short, is where all 9 M1D engines will shut off to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation.
MVAC chill.
There's confirmation that we're chilling the MVAC engine for SES-1. Stage 2, of course, will continue to second engine start 1 after stage SEP, and that's when the single MVAC engine will ignite to propel the second stage to orbit. Less than a minute after all of these flight events, the fairing halves will also separate and jettison away from the rocket. We'll hear that one called out from Mission Control, but as a reminder, we won't have any payload views tonight at the request of our customer. Standing by for main engine cutoff in just about 15 seconds.
Main engine cut off.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
We have had great confirmation and views there of main engine cutoff, stage separation, and of course, second engine start 1. We are standing by now for the call out for fairing separation. And we will be attempting to retrieve these fairing halves once they fall back down to Earth using our recovery ship, Go Beyond.
Fairing separation confirmed.
There's confirmation of fairing sep. Now, coming up about 3 minutes from now, the booster, which you've got great views of the grid fins on your screen right now, will initiate its entry burn to begin its journey to the Of Course I Still Love You drone ship, which is currently stationed in the Pacific Ocean. Those grid fins on board Stage 1 are the primary mechanical structure that we use to guide the rocket on its way back to Earth. Of course, what we are leading up to is the entry burn, expected again at just about T+6 minutes after liftoff. If you are just joining us today, you're coming into our live webcast of the NRO payload launch. We had an on-time 8:20 p.m. Pacific liftoff from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, followed by successful main engine cutoff, stage separation, second engine start 1, and fairing separation. To start the entry burn, we'll relight 3 of the M1D engines on board the first stage, which is essentially the same as pumping the brakes. We need to slow the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere to reduce re-entry forces, which helps us to recover and reuse the booster on future flights. During the entry burn, Falcon 9 will be decelerating by firing those Merlin engines, but we're still moving really fast. This causes the vehicle to fly through Merlin's exhaust gases, which is also known as the rocket's plume, and deposits a layer of soot on the vehicle's surface. That soot comes from the carbon-based fuel that Falcon 9 uses, and with each repeated flight, the soot builds up a little more on the outside of the vehicle. You can, of course, continue to track the first stage telemetry in the bottom left corner of your screen as the booster continues to make its way back to our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, which is currently stationed in the Pacific Ocean. Reusability is key to lowering the cost of spaceflight, which enables more investments in critical space infrastructure, in today's case, supporting national security. The Falcon 9 first stage that is supporting today's mission is about to perform this entry burn for the 20th time.
Stage 1, entry burn startup.
There we have great views that entry burn has begun on board our first stage booster, and we are expecting this burn to last about 20 seconds.
Stage 1, entry burn shutdown.
And confirmation of shutdown. The Merlin engines on board the first stage are optimized for sea level, which is primarily because they operate in the Earth's atmosphere. They achieve 190,000 pounds of thrust each during both ascent and descent. At liftoff, Falcon 9's first stage has thrust greater than 5 747 airplanes at full power.
Stage 1 FTS is safed.
By contrast, the MVAC engine on board the second stage has a much wider nozzle and is optimized to 220,500 pounds of thrust in vacuum. Now, coming up in just over 30 seconds, we'll have our landing burn on board the first stage.
Stage 1 transonic.
Confirmation that Stage 1 is transonic on its way back to its rendezvous point
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
with our drone ship. Just like the entry burn, we're expecting our landing burn to be relatively quick. The difference here, though, is that what we're using this burn for is to touch down softly on the surface of our drone ship.
And terminal guidance. Stage 1 landing burn.
Confirmation of landing burn startup. Can see those grid fins working as we target the drone ship here.
Deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And confirmation of touchdown. This again was the 20th launch and landing for this first stage. This landing also marks SpaceX's 345th recovery of an orbital class rocket, including first stage landings for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy.
MVAC shutdown.
With confirmation there of SECO 1, we will bring today's webcast to a close. Thank you to the National Reconnaissance Office for entrusting us with today's mission. If you are interested in more launch coverage, be sure to check spacex.com/launches for the most up-to-date information. Today's mission marks SpaceX's 381st overall launch to date and 86th mission of this year. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again soon.